well, but I could run Sibarium in this. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, we are live. What is up, YouTube world? I got a couple of cool dudes here, and we are about to play a game called Microscope, which is a world-building system. This is a game, if you haven't heard of it for some reason, where we literally start with nothing and create an entire world and its history all in the span of hopefully 3 hours, and not just sit here for the next couple hours talking about what we're going to start playing. I have the amazing Alex Brady. You don't have a channel, do you, Alex? Negative. We have Tyler Hurst, who is from On a Roll, DM Ty, the great DM in the community, and then we have Harry, who also has his own channel of Two Guys in D&D, or T. Sorry, go ahead and say it, Harry. I fucked it up.
Two Guys T in D&D.
That's right. That's it.
With the other guy. Ugh. Well, I know.
The other guy's all right, but Harry's definitely the rock star of the page. I'm just kidding. The Lionel's obviously an amazing.
I'm the handsome young guy.
Yep. And if by chance you're checking out this video, then you obviously know who I am. So, like I said, Microscope. The very first thing that we're going to do is I actually have this thing that's teaching. The PDF gives me a step-by-step of teaching Microscope. And the author tells me something that I should read to you. It says that the author of this game says I should read this part to you because it's really important. All of us sitting here at this virtual table have equal creative power. At times, we will have different roles and authority, but we are equal participants and authors. It may sound to you like I'm running the game, or better yet, I just learned that Alex has way more experience with this game, so maybe it's going to sound like he's running the game and correcting me whenever I say something terribly wrong. But because we are telling you rules does not mean that we have any more authority than either of you. There's no GM in this game, and that's basically it. Now that we know what the game is about, we are basically ready to start, and the first step that we do is create the big picture, and the big picture is just that, the setting of this world. You just read something that was from the book, I believe. Alex, do you want to read it again for everybody else, and then we'll go from there?
Absolutely. So step one, the big picture. First, brainstorm a simple overview of the history you want to play. If you were looking in a history book, this would be the one line that summarizes what happens but leaves out all the details. It should be no more than a single sentence. And it gives us some examples if we want to, just to have an idea. An ancient empire rises and falls. Cavemen at the dawn of time found the first civilization. Mankind leaves the sick earth behind and spreads out to the stars. And I feel like this caveman thing at the dawn of time that found the first civilization kind of goes with something along the lines of what we were just randomly shooting the shit about in the pre-game discussion.
Yeah. So
I don't know what you guys think about that, but
I seem all right with it.
And
basically, to give some background on why we're doing this is hopefully we're going to come up with a world that is so rich and cool with detail that it's going to inspire us to actually run some games. So before we actually launched this, we decided that we are going to try to keep it at least 5e-ish friendly, or something fantasy-ish, so that we can, that's pretty much where I'm most comfortable with, and I know the other guys have some familiarity in that. So the idea is we're going to come up with this fantasy setting that we can run some one-shots, or maybe even if we find the inspiration, a campaign. And like he said, that's what we were kind of thinking about when we were starting talking, is this typical fantasy world, but a world before there was amazing cities like Neverwinter, before there was adventurers or heroes that would step up and go out into the wild and literally just do that for a living. How do you guys like the sound of that? And like I said, obviously I have no more control than you. So spitball your ideas and let's see what we come up with.
So as we were kind of talking before in the chat, I was thinking something similar to like mankind emerges and establishes itself among the other races. Like they become they're like an emerging race. Like they're not necessarily they're not the big powerful people. They're not like the people you look to and like, oh man, look at their cities, look at their castles. Like they're emerging, and they're starting to figure out their role in the world. Something along those lines I'm very interested in.
Cool. And is that like the other races are established and man kind of shows up on this world and it was like basically their borderline caveman, maybe in the Iron Age, but or do you mean that like everyone kind of discovers each other all at once?
How about like something like the arrival or the emergence of mankind breaks a century-long stasis and sends the world into chaos? Like, so their other races were there, but they were kind of like doing the same thing, like maybe for a long time, and they could be like established, but not necessarily in the sense that they're necessarily very technologically advanced or even socially advanced. Like maybe the elves were kind of like living off in the forest, sort of Native American style, and like had this sort of peaceful way of life that's low impact and that's like, you know, not necessarily super developed in the way we would consider stuff as developed or not developed or whatever. The races were there, but I think it would go against our idea of having this sort of super dangerous area where, you know, it's very rugged and very dangerous if the other races already have huge cities and gigantic civilizations. So maybe like there's some sort of establishment, some sort of balance that's happened that's erring on the side of less development, and the emergence of mankind sort of breaks that stasis and sends everything into chaos, offsets the balance.
Cool. Sounds rad to me. What do you think, Harry?
I'm trying to think back to sort of books and other things I've read. I remember reading one book, might have been like the Belgorod, something like that. There's that series where these different, they're not like different species, but different societies as humans were sort of popped up in different areas, also developing at the same time and then meeting and then clashing, that kind of thing. So maybe the different races are all on the same level, but it's only now that they're actually meeting each other, as you know, as well as trying to establish themselves.
Yeah, so that sounds cool. And Tyler, are you kind of on the same page? Is that sounding cool?
So kind of taking into what both of them said, I really like the idea of like there's this stasis, like there's like all the other races, like they exist. Maybe they're not like super advanced. Maybe like the elves have like they've got their bows and stuff, which no one else really has. Maybe the orcs have like numbers or something. I don't know. Like everyone's got kind of their strong suit that keeps everything in like the stasis. But with the emergence of humans, it kind of tips everything over the edge.
Yeah.
Like I like that idea where suddenly the humans emerge like, wait, this is a new resource. Like at first the humans are a resource, and then it's all out war. Like I think that's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, totally. So now that we're kind of all on the same page of this idea, what we need to do is turn this big picture into, I think, what is it, a sentence or two, Alex, that pretty much puts our idea into like this elevator pitch.
Yeah, it should be no more than a single sentence is what it says in the book.
Okay. So, Alex, you pretty much almost, I feel like, hit it on the head with the very first thing you said. Do we want to, what was it, a stasis or? You said
I said the emergence of mankind breaks a century-long stasis and sends the world into chaos.
Okay. So then I want to try to fine-tune that a bit more. And in the excitement, I totally forgot, Harry, that we're going to try to use Trello. I don't know if you're familiar with it. For actually organizing this.
Yep.
You can see that I'm screen sharing it. It doesn't matter if you have it or not.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, but did I say Harry? I meant Alex, sorry.
Yeah, I do have Trello. I used it last time I played Microscope online. So
cool. So if you want to Facebook message me, and I'll add you to our board, and then.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be writing stuff on, like writing random notes on paper, but.
And to incorporate your idea, Harry, I think it'd be cool if like maybe humans weren't the only race to arrive. So maybe there's like one or two races that are there that are in the stasis, and then humans sort of emerge and this other group kind of comes in, and so it's a clash of like the people who were there before and these new arrivers all kind of meeting at the same time.
Yeah, and
so I could like sort of mix both ideas. Would that be okay with you?
Definitely.
I don't want to like
Definitely. No, that sounds cool.
I think it'd be cool to like have everybody's ideas incorporated.
Yeah, and that's something that like by what we just created in this first sentence, in no way does it stop us from even doing that in the first place. That's kind of the cool thing. This is a very broad picture. What races are there and what races aren't there and how they got there and all that. That's stuff that we're going to figure out. So That's one thing that Microscope actually tells you. There's another section that I'm supposed to read. It says Microscope is a little bit like poker. You want to keep your cool ideas close to your vest and only use them or until you use them. If the rest of us know what each other are going to do, it's going to create a very linear game. Whereas if you have like a super cool idea and kind of drop it on us when we're not expecting it, that's going to change the world and give that like dynamic kind of history feel where like something really shocking in history happens. So we have that first sentence of mankind's emergence breaks a century-long stasis as they become a new resource. Does everybody like that, or do you want to tinker with it a bit?
I think that's good. I think it'd be cool to name our world.
Maybe. Yeah, you want to? Yep, you want to name it. In the
sentence.
I know that.
Sends.
Go ahead.
Let me think.
Might be easier to name it at the end. Once we've like come up with a few things.
All right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So if you see in the Trello, I have now created on what I've labeled the sideboard, our big picture. That's going to be there as a reminder. And basically, Alex, if you remember your account name for Trello, just send that in the Facebook chat, and I'll add you in. But yeah, so that's a pretty cool first sentence for a big picture. That brings us on to the second step now, which I believe is called our. Let me actually look before I mess it up. It's
the bookend thing.
Yeah, the bookend history. So that's where we're going to make our first two passes on this world. We're going to create our starting phase, our starting period, and our ending period. And what we do there is, let me see if I can actually find it. We're going to borderline put that in another sentence or two, and we're going to describe whether it is a light and or happy kind of period or a dark and more obviously not so good period. And that sounds about right, eh, Alex? It's just basically a sentence, right? So yeah, let's do that. Obviously, I'm thinking that our end period should basically be pretty much your stereotypic-ish fantasy world. What do you guys think?
Perhaps the end should be the founding of the first kingdom, the first city. Like that is the dawn of civilization for men or whatever.
I like the first United Kingdom sounds great, Tyler.
I like the sound of United Kingdom as well.
Or do you want to just go? Do we want to go single kingdom, or do we want to make maybe the first empire?
Well, okay, so if we're talking like medieval ages, like a kingdom, so an empire is multiple kingdoms combined into one.
Yes.
So are we talking that there are multiple kingdoms all finally uniting under one banner, or are we talking like multiple like counties and duchies and stuff combining into one kingdom? Like that, I feel like that's very, very important that we clarify which one we want.
Yeah, it's up to you guys.
An empire with no contending kingdoms or empires is going to just waste everything.
Yeah, no, I don't think there would be necessarily the one empire or kingdom that rules them all, but maybe just that.
I mean, you can scale it down to be the first free human city.
I like that.
Oh, free human
kingdom. Right now.
I like free
just
human
free
kingdom.
Human city, the first one.
Yeah, like they have a kingdom for themselves and they're humans and they've established themselves as, not necessarily a force to be reckoned with, but enough of a people that they have their own city, walled city, like a built thing.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, and I already wrote that in. We obviously don't have to go with it, but
that should be light or dark. I think light.
Sounds pretty light to me.
That sounds pretty light. Unless they killed every other race to get there.
I think it depends on your perspective if it's light or dark. Because for humans, it'd be a very light event, but for everybody else, it'd be a very dark event. Considering what humans will probably be able to do, like now that they've got the place of their own.
But humans are kind of the protagonists of our history, so.
Okay, so if you went to the protagonist,
from the perspective of sort of like rooting for the protagonists or the main people of the history, I'd make it a light event.
So everyone good with that?
Oh yeah.
And our beginning history, sorry, where do these books open? Obviously, probably somewhere around the arrival of man, which we can still, at this point, keep a mystery, and probably should, actually.
I think it would only make sense that if we're talking about ending with freedom, that we start with slavery.
Yeah, I had just the exact same thought.
Like, with their emergence, they're literally turned into a resource. I think what would make humans into a resource is they're innovative. That they're able to think, like, beyond, like, the here and now, and their shortened lives give them a unique perspective.
I think that's a good idea for sure. I also think that there could potentially be a sort of era before that where the humans are first emerging and first arriving, that it happens sort of before the other races start considering them as a resource or taking advantage of them, if that is to happen.
Yeah, I kind of like that too.
The first period might almost be like something a little more innocent, like the humans, they either arrive by boat or their race emerges because of some deity or god that creates them and puts them there, or just kind of an arrival period where they're getting there.
I think we should actually keep the actual arrival of them too, like a bit kind of close to ourselves for right now, and not even discuss that in the period. But I do like that idea of at least exploring them showing up and not like starting with them instantly being enslaved.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think just the arrival, just call it that.
So the arrival of man, pretty basic.
Yeah.
And that's not.
I like that the event would just be titled "The Arrival."
The arrival? No. Yeah, the period of the arrival. Yeah, we can call it that. Or no, that'd be an event. Yeah. So yeah, that's a cool idea. The arrival of men, and then we can obviously have an event. So let's add that first period, and I'm going to label that light and add that. So I have labels and stuff that if you guys are familiar with Trello, you can try to use.
I've never used it.
So basically, I'll handle the actual labels then. But scenes are going to be green, and events will be blue, just so that you guys can kind of focus that. And then obviously yellow, light, and black is dark. But did we agree that it was light? I put that it was light.
I think, having two light ends, but just a horrible dark middle.
Yeah.
I like chocolate cake with like a nice icing on the outside.
A nice decadent chocolate cake of history.
All right. So I think now that we've bookended history, our step 3 is the palette, where we add or ban ingredients. And I really like this step.
Yeah, this is cool.
So for those of you who haven't played yet, so next we take a step back and create your history's palette. The palette is a list of things the players agree to reserve the right to include, or conversely, outright ban. It gets everyone on the same page about what belongs in history and what doesn't. So we make 2 columns, one for yes and one for no, and we take turns adding a thing to either yes or to no. And we keep going until one person decides to pass. And when one person decides to pass, everybody else gets to finish their turn, and then it's over. And if you say yes to something, it should be expected in history. It would not be necessarily be expected, but we want to reserve the right to add it. And we say no to something if we think we might expect it to happen, but we don't want it included. So if we're like in a standard fantasy land and we agree that it's standard fantasy, we don't have to say yes to wizards, because everybody just assumes that there's going to be wizards. But you would maybe say no to wizards, you know?
Or like no to flying, like something more specific.
Exactly. So you only say it if it's relevant, is kind of the point.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously once no is said, it cannot be in the game. Yes doesn't necessarily have to make its way into the game, but a no is a definite rule that it will never show up in our world. So does anyone want to kick it off? I'll kick it off if not.
Go for it, man. And
then obviously for you, Harry, who is new to Trello, if you click on palette, I just created 2 checklists, a yes and a no checklist. I'm going to click on my yes checklist first, and add an item. And the first thing that I actually want to add is planes, or like the planar realities, I guess. I don't really know how to word that better, but I want there definitely to be
Planes of existence.
planes of
Whatever.
existence. Yeah.
Planes.
And I spelled existence wrong, but no one focused on that. Good thing we spell check. All right, so then how about from now on we go in the order of me, Harry, Tyler, Alex, back to me. So Harry, that would put you up next.
Okay. I'm gonna go with no iron.
No iron. Oh, damn.
You okay to add that in, or should I do it?
I'll add it. Actually, I'm here, so might as well. That's a big one you just dropped on us.
So that's like obviously no to like most metals, like steel incorporates iron.
Yep. Just to clarify, like anything with iron.
Are we
So,
like
yeah,
fine with
Okay.
sort of copper?
Interesting.
Yeah, you just dropped one on us.
Yeah, I'm going there.
Damn, son.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
just nothing
iron
with
is
the
like the
element
main
iron.
ingredient for most alloys, so that's like huge.
Mhm.
You sure about that one? Because what would?
I'm sure.
All right.
No take backsies.
No swords, man.
No take backsies.
Zero.
That means they're gonna have to find like another way to forge stuff. Like,
Bronze.
I mean, I'm imagining like we can make up our own alloys because of this, like for the world. Like that's interesting. Okay, cool.
Yep,
Interesting.
definitely. All right,
I'm
so
getting very, very heavy Mistborn vibes because we're gonna be making up alloys.
go for it, Tyler, on your first ban or allow.
Well, I'm gonna ban something.
Damn, son. Ban Blitzcrank.
Here we go. Ready
Bam,
for this?
son.
No one can be born with magic.
Oh shit, that's interesting as heck. That's a
So that
spicy.
Magic is not
means
something
no
you're born
sorcerers.
capable of
Yep.
using.
So no sorcerers, or sorcerers are.
I'm gonna say you can reflavor sorcerers in some way, but you just cannot be born with magic. Maybe sorcerers have some sort of family heirloom they gave it instead. But we'd have to figure out where magic comes from later rather than just being born with it.
Yeah, that's totally cool. All right, go for it, Alex.
It is my turn,
I'm so not ready for my turn, so take your time.
and I don't really have any ideas. So I am going to say yes to like monotheist religion.
So explain that to people who are stupid like me.
So like a religion where there's only one God, like Islam, Christianity, stuff
Okay.
like that. So some people might believe in pantheons or whatnot, but in this world, there could be cultures that are like, no, we've got the one God here. Like all this is bullshit.
So a good example of this, Chris, would be for the Drow in the Forgotten Realm setting. They only believe in Lolth.
Okay.
Like
So-
that's a good example of like monotheistic.
So
or
now,
like Christianity. Yeah.
Or like in Game of Thrones, how like there's the seven and all and whatnot.
And then you got the
one
red
group
God,
that have the red God, and they're like, no, all this religion stuff is all bullshit. We've got
Although technically there's the God they don't speak of also, who's technically a god. So in a way they kind of believe in two, but either way.
so to
all right.
clarify,
Well, one
then,
or like
to clarify, then, are we saying that there's only one God in this world, or that people can have different gods, but they usually
But yeah.
they only believe in the God that they believe in?
I guess the way I saw it was that there could be like cultures that have them like they believe only in one God. So I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no to a pantheon of gods. Like there could be like some people that believe in a bunch of gods, but I'm saying it's not a given in this world that there's a pantheon or something. There could be some people who just believe in one god.
All right,
just
so
basically just want to include a monotheistic religion at some point.
all right, so someone want to add that into the palette since I have no clue how to spell it. And that puts it back up to me. I have like something in my mind that's like pretty nasty on the no department, and I don't really have anything else. So give me a couple seconds here to think it out. And is this part is not collaborative, right? It's basically my turn, and it's not encouraged that people throw me.
I think the only thing that we can do is like clarify what you mean.
Yeah. I believe that that's true also. So
in the book, it actually says, feel free to discuss and negotiate. No one should be unhappy about what winds up added or banned in the palette.
All right, cool. So the first thing that kind of comes up to my mind then is with no iron, weapons is going to be a strange thing. So I want to come up with a yes that is going to be able to, in some way, get us semi-conventional weapons so that when we run this game, we don't have to like rebuild the entire adventure gear chart.
I was going to say, like, the only things that would be missing would be things like, if you're going to go for like realism, the only thing would be missing would be like long swords, and just a lot of longer blade weaponry. So short swords would be fine, just mainly because of the sort of integrity of iron.
Gotcha.
But there's plenty of other metals you can replace with.
Fair enough. So we don't have to really necessarily worry about that. I'm just going to go hit it with the nasty one then. And that is going to be armor is a thing. Sorry, what are you saying in the chat, Tyler?
I'm just talking to Harry about like the different kinds of armor that I guess that could be used.
Gotcha. So what I'm leaning towards then, just so that we can get some discussion going, is magical healing potentially being a no, or something that's not like resurrection. Probably near impossible, if not impossible, is what I'm leaning towards. How
about no magical healing without consequence?
There we go. I love that. That's perfect. You nailed that. But I'm actually like in my current games working on stuff like this where like magic healing comes at a price. So,
same. I have this system in a steampunk game that I'm running for magical healing that is pretty dope.
Nice. I'll have to talk about that with you after the game.
We should chat about it later, but I don't want to influence anything, so I won't say anything.
Yeah. So that's me. Back to Harry.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Right. I'm gonna think of something. I think I might go for a yes something this time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh fuck. So
pressure.
I don't know how to word this in like a couple of words. Basically, like, I want to have like, there's no, I guess, okay, I could either go in the yes or the no, but like no like common language.
Oh dang.
So that could probably go in the no, I guess.
I like it.
No
that's
common
language.
Awesome.
Yep.
Because there's no like real common language in this world, so why would there be, you know, it's way more fun. Like, how do you communicate with someone that can't, you know, speak a language?
Cool. So no common language. I guess I'll just leave it no common. You guys will know what I mean. So, that's interesting. Now, to clarify, will there be magic spells like comprehend language?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, it'd be a little bit boring, but I'm not against it.
Okay.
So essentially, there is no such thing as common.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You speak like your sort of like tribe's language.
But that doesn't mean that there isn't a language that most people try and learn to communicate, like a trade
it's like
language.
English. I mean, people try and learn English because a lot of people try and learn English to communicate with each other. Like, well, like
I feel like a language that everybody tries to learn to communicate would be a lot like Common.
yeah,
Yeah, but I like the idea that you don't just start with it. Like it's a language you have to pick up.
Yeah.
Like with your character. I think that's a really cool idea.
So would we go with the language in that case being like English for humans, or would we be saying something like whatever we decide is the most common powerful race? That's their language.
I think even
I think
feel
I
like
would
that
think-
might be going into too much detail at this point.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But the way I'm thinking that Harry's kind of trying to describe this is that like elves have elvish, orcs have orcish, humans have common.
Yeah. Okay.
Like common is the human language, but it's not anyone else's language.
Sounds cool.
yeah, I was also thinking of like different languages between different tribes of humans, like if they're fairly far apart. But that's just I'll leave that.
Cool. So back to
I feel like that would largely like be influenced by who you live next to, but that's getting too detailed again.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead, Tyler. And then keep in mind that once you run out of ideas, there's no pressure. We could end this phase, and that's basically it. But go ahead if you got anything else.
Just thinking. This is kind of interesting because I've got a couple going through my head, but I have to think of the ramifications of any one of them.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's better not to think of it and just see what happens.
I think I think I'm gonna go. Okay, interesting. Okay, I think I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna put a yes up there.
Okay.
And this is just mostly because like I see like really bland worlds far too often, and I'm just gonna put yes to multiple cultures.
Okay.
Like for example, this is not just like a purely feudal European setting. Like there are multiple cultures in this setting.
Cool. All right, that's an interesting one. Back to you, Alex. He ponders deeply what he'll say next. Considers heavily on passing.
I pass.
Thanks, son. That ends it. I was going to pass 100% if you didn't pass. So that's it, eh? We're just done that phase? All right. That is our palette, boys. Just to go over again, we have yes to planes of existence, yes to monotheism, yes to multiple cultures, and no to iron, no to no one born with magic, no to no magical healing without consequences, and no to a common language. Next, we enter our next phase, and we're almost pretty much ready to start playing the meat of the real game now. This is called the first pass, where now we are going to get each player to add either a period or event. Scenes, which are the deepest, most zoomed in, moment to moment, second to second, are still off limits for this, but we can now create a period in between these two periods or an event which happens inside one of these periods. And again, you choose whether the events are light or dark. And I'm trying to look up the actual like word for word definition of an event. Feel free to just jump in, Alex, if you know it. I know it's like basically similar in a sentence, but a little more detailed. And the important thing is that you state the outcome, if I'm not mistaken. Like you can't be vague. Like humans attack Elven village. You need to actually state like humans raid and kill an Elven village or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex.
Absolutely, yeah, that's correct. An event is a specific thing that happens inside a period, like a prince seizing the throne or a colony ship arriving on a new world. To add a new event, decide what period the event is in. If there are already other events in the period, place it before or after them. An event must be inside an existing period. Tell the other players what happens during the event and say if the tone is light or dark.
Cool. And I guess that's up to me. So what do I want to do? I think I'm going to kind of actually cheese you guys and create a period that we already discussed will probably happen. And that is, I just want to think of how I'm going to word it. How do I want to word this? Basically, the enslaving of man, where they lose their freedom. Because I don't think that, I don't see that happening in the first period for some reason. Feel free to. I think you guys can.
Right.
Yeah.
Another thing it says in the game is start by just explaining like what you feel and your general vibe about the idea, and don't worry about the paper or the note or anything. Just like sort of communicate to us what it is, and then sort of write down like just jot down a few words that will remind us about what you told us. What's important is like the thing that you say, not necessarily what's written on the card.
Yeah, so I'm going with the loss of freedom from man or by man. That's for men. The loss of freedom.
I think pretty much I'd say just assume we're talking about humans, because that's sort of the focus that we've had at the moment. So just having to keep on typing men over and over again.
Yeah. Humans.
I think just have like that as like the basic, and then like anything else, just add in like elf or whatever.
I want to come up with that dank period name though. It's just something that strikes fear in the history books. It's very.
Can you tell us more about who is enslaving the humans?
That I actually, unless I have to, don't want to go into detail yet. That's something I want to explore, like see what happens. Who is it that is the dominant race in this world? Is that fair, or do I actually have to go into detail at this point?
I think it's your call.
Yeah, okay. And maybe it doesn't even necessarily need to just be humans. Maybe the loss of freedom is what this period could be called. Does that sound fair? Who's to say that only humans get? Because realistically, if we're thinking about it, humans aren't necessarily more superior to any other race in this fantasy world. So maybe it's not even just them that gets picked up and enslaved.
Awesome, dude.
So I'm just going to say the age of slavery.
I mean, if you want to just give it a pretty ambiguous name, just call it The Binding.
The Binding. There you go. Leave it to Tyler Hurst to come up with the dank period names. The Binding is definitely a dark time in history. All right. That puts it on to you, Harry. So you got to come up with an event. I should have created an event in hindsight.
Sorry, is it an event or a period, or is it like you do?
So right now,
either one.
Right now we're to either one. We're locked into either doing an event or a period, and later on we'll have a little bit more options.
I think I've got an interesting period. I think I just want to call it the rise and fall of a hero as a period. Actually, wait. I want to stick that in. Actually, stick that in as an event.
Okay, and
in your binding one.
Okay, cool. Do you want to? Yeah, the rise and fall.
I can't. Yeah, the rise and fall. There's also something else I want to say, but I might just hold it to my chest. But
yeah, that's probably a good idea to just keep it close at that point.
Do you think you could like maybe be a little bit more specific? It does say like for an event, you want to tell the other players what happens. Your description should be specific enough that the other players have a clear picture of what physically takes place. Make sure to include the outcome not just the start.
Yeah, sorry, he's right.
Yeah, okay. It's because I initially thought it was going to be a period, but I changed it to an event. So give me a second.
What if you do go to, or am I allowed to make suggestions here? I don't want to kind of break the rules. I don't think I'm supposed
No,
to.
I think it's all right to sort of teach the game.
Basically, like the idea that I have is like the sort of, you know, that like beacon of hope. That one guy. I think what's his name from Mistborn?
So what's coming to my mind is maybe a period called the First Hero.
Yeah, it's basically, and then think Kelsey, or Kelsey. Think him like, so it would end in his death.
So like somebody rises who they're like, oh, this guy's gonna save us, but then he ends up dying.
Yeah, and I kind of want to add in something else. I don't know how to clarify this in like one good sentence. So I need to decide when it is, describe the event. So yeah, like maybe it's like he is like just a really charismatic guy, comes to prominence through speeches or whatever, attempts an uprising and dies. That's like the first, you know, seems maybe dark, but I think maybe a light event. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to keep it as an event. So then just to maybe word this in a way that does have a conclusion, could we raise it or name it as the first hero rises, and would just be saying that he is slain? Is that still too ambiguous, Harry or Alex, you think?
I think it's pretty good. I think it's definitely on the right track. Let me read you an example in the book to like see like what it sounds like when they're making an event here.
Okay.
So a player says, I'll make an event in the Lords of Shadow period. A warrior prince who's a direct descendant of High King Ulrich sneaks into the castle of a shadow-tainted duke to rescue his sister, who the duke has captured and plans to wed. The prince and princess have both been hiding, and they had escaped corruption. The event is totally dark. So this says he described the situation, but not the outcome. And so someone asks him to clarify, and he says, oh, right. The prince tries valiantly, but he's discovered and slain. His sister does not escape, hence the dark. So for events, we're looking for stuff like, all right, we've got characters, and like there's something happening, and you describe like really precisely
So
the whole thing.
Whatever this guy's name is, I can't think of it. Just call him the hero. Maybe think of a name at some other time. He like rallies the people around him. He attempts a slave uprising against whoever's keeping them captive, but he fails and dies, but ascends to godhood, and that end is ascending to godhood. Like whether that's actually like he is actually a god now, or it's just a god from his people, is whatever, up to you.
Cool. So my
awesome
way of wording that would be the first hero rallies the enslaved.
Yeah, rallies the enslaved.
And is slain and ascends to godhood.
Yeah. Something like that. I think you know what I mean, kind of. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Rises.
There's your monotheism right there.
Maybe we just found our first god. And that's a dark, you said, right? Or no, light. That's a light.
I think light.
Yep. Which is interesting because that does sound like a pretty bad time, but we'll have to explore how that is good. So I have it as the first event created. The first hero rallies the enslaved, and is slain and rises to godhood. Everyone cool with that? All right, Tyler Hurst, first event or period from you.
Interesting. I want to say in the first period, the event of the arrival of men. Trying to figure out how to phrase this as a specific event, but I want to say like mankind's emergence is not known. Like nobody knows where they actually came from. Like they have no progenitor. So I don't really know how to make that into an event, though. I feel like that's just a description of the arrival of men.
Mankind's mysterious arrival, and then what is the outcome of mankind's mysterious arrival, I think would be enough to narrow that to an event.
I also think that just because nobody in the world necessarily knows and got there doesn't mean that we necessarily can't make something up for it if you wanted to.
Make up where they actually came from in this like event?
Yeah. Just because no one else knows, or even they don't even know, I feel like it could make it more of an event if you said like, oh, they arrived on Earth via blank, you know, like just like sort of create something there of how it actually happened. I don't know.
Let's go with this then. Shortly after a new sun starts blazing in the heavens, mankind arrives.
That's
awesome.
Can you write that in? You write that in. Do you know how?
Yeah, I know how to write it in.
All right.
Are you saying binary star system? Because that makes me happy. Like in Tatooine. Oh.
Figure 8 style orbits.
All right. While he's writing that in, go ahead and do yourself, Mr. Brady.
All right. I have an event that is going to be either at the end of the arrival of man or at the beginning of the binding. And I think we're going to go ahead and put this at the beginning of the binding, before the first hero rallies the enslaved and is slain and rises to godhood. And so in this event, so mankind has first arrived, okay? And they are as a species at this point. I mean, there are, you know, lizard folk raiding them all the time by the banks of the rivers. There's orcs coming from the north in, and these men are just getting pillaged, and it's just awful. And Chief Bramvir sees his people dying and sees these horrible events that are happening. Nothing's turning out as planned. And he, to save his people, strikes a deal with a dwarven lord and sells the humans into slavery to this dwarven clan in exchange for protection. So it's like they've already got like their stuff built up in the mountains. They've got their walls, they've got their cities, and the humans are out there, and they're just basically essentially getting slaughtered. And so there's no king, there's no whatever, but there's this one guy whose name is Chief Bramvir, and he's in charge of sort of a lot of these tribes and whatnot. And he's like goes in and meets with the dwarven monarch and strikes a deal in which the humans are essentially let into this dwarven stronghold, but in exchange, they have to work for the dwarves. And this is a light event because the humans are at this point essentially defenseless, and they're being slaughtered, and they are let in to this dwarven stronghold and sort of start to communicate with these guys, even though they don't speak the same language. And overall, it's seen as a pretty positive move, at least at the beginning.
Cool. All right, so everyone has taken a turn at the first paths, and I believe that actually puts us into the actual game now. So let's see. I'm going to just read whatever this says, and we'll go from there. So now that setup is done, we are ready to start playing. We already know more about our history than we did when we first came up with the single sentence idea. As we play, we will find out more and more. The basic structure of this game is that we're going around the table, adding to the history, making either a period, an event, or a scene. For each rotation, there is going to be one player called the lens, and that player is going to pick a particular focus that everything that we create has to relate to. So if the focus is a city, each player is going to add something to the history and somehow relate it to that city. It's a topic that keeps us all on the same page. If you make a period or event, just describe what happens as though we're seeing it through a bird's eye view. You are in charge, and the rest of us are eagerly listening to hear what you have to say. If you make a scene, we all pick characters and role play to find out what really happened in that moment in history. So now we do have the option of the third thing, which is a scene. And I, as the first player, am supposed to show you how this works. So I am going to be the lens, apparently, even though I feel like Alex definitely has the more seniority, but that's okay. I'm going to pick it. I'm going to lens it up. And what I am interested in is, I think I'm just going to get this started right off the bat and say that the first few footsteps of man on this new continent or world. So I want to focus on the actual arrival of men. Sounds about right. Now that I have chosen that, I believe that I'm supposed to pick something. And
you start by making two nested things. So you can make a period and an event, or an event and a scene.
Okay. And I just... So after the short sun, I'm going to create an event, which is the first contact with the lizard folk. And the humans, sorry, not to keep saying men, humans are left devastated. Sounds about right? Sound good? First contact with lizard folk. Humans are left devastated. I don't actually want to touch yet on how they arrived, but this is going to be their first run-in with another race. First contact with lizard folk, human are left devastated. That is obviously going to be a dark event, and I think we are going to play out a scene in that. And now that we are playing out a scene, what I have to do is generate a question. And from there, we're going to role play this scene and answer my question. Once the question is answered, the scene is over. Now, there's no dice in this game. So basically, we all role play a character. I believe I get the option to either ban or pick an NPC that has to either be in there or not be in there. And then from there on out, you guys get to pick any one that you can think of, and we try to answer my question. So my question is going to be, what did the lizard folk, what were the lizard folk actually looking for when they stumbled across humans?
That's awesome, dude.
They stumbled across humans. This is a scene. Now, before we actually jump into scenes, there's probably a couple questions that you guys have. The first couple things that come to my mind to tell you is that when you are role-playing, you are allowed to say what your character is doing. You actually want to not be vague. So in most games, you don't necessarily say what your character is thinking. But in this case, there's really no reason to hide it from each other. So if your character is thinking something and being ambiguous, you actually want to state it so that we know and can get the scene rolling. If you're going to try to do something to somebody else's main character, it's up to that person that you're trying to do the outcome. So if Tyler is playing a lizard folk and I say my human runs up and stabs him, it's actually up to Tyler if I stab that lizard folk or not. Make sense?
Absolutely. And one more thing I'd add about scenes to sort of complement what you just said is that it's really useful, since there's no GM to sort of set the scene, it's our job to set the scene as players, and it's really useful to describe what your character is perceiving. Absolutely. Then my character drops in fear as he sees an army approaching from the other side of the cliffs, and then, that's there.
Okay, so
you can introduce things.
I'm going to create the first NPC. I'm actually not going to ban or allow anyone because I don't really even know who is in this. But the first character that I am going to add is Chief Alto, which is going to be the head. I don't want to say raider because that kind of establishes what they were doing, and that ruins it. Chief Alto, leader of the lizard folk. All right, so then I believe it goes to somebody else to create an NPC, correct? Or is that right? Yep. So go ahead, Harry, if you're there. I think I see your camera off, so maybe you stepped out. You're on mute if you're trying to talk. If not, I'm just going to jump to Tyler.
He's grabbing a drink.
All right, so go ahead, Tyler. We'll just skip him for now.
So this is first encounter with only the lizard folk?
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's our actual first encounter, actually, now that I think about it, but this specific scene is an encounter with the lizard folk.
Interesting. I'm going to say that among the humans, there is a man who they've placed above them. They don't know what title to give him yet. But his name is Kalak Thar. And Kalak Thar is not a chief. He does not have supreme control, but they look to him as a leader. So whatever you want to call that, maybe just, I guess.
Let's just call him Kalak. Whatever you write it in the chat or write it in the scene where I have NPCs going, and maybe we'll find out what he's called.
Maybe Kalak is the actual name of the leadership role.
Yeah, that works. That's fine. Kind of like a for sure. You call them the Kalak first. The Kalak Thar is the leader of the humans at this moment.
All right. We'll go back to Harry now that you're back. Go ahead, and in case you missed it, we're creating NPCs at this point.
Okay. So the scene is she stumbled across the humans. Okay. I think I'm gonna go for like the main bodyguard of Chief. Is it Alto?
Yep.
Chief Alto, and he shall be called Bouchard.
All right.
I shall write that in if you wish. Yeah, I'll make the thing.
Yep, go ahead. You'll see where it is. And while he's adding that, go ahead and create the last NPC, Alex. You're on mute if you're trying to speak.
All right. So my character is going to be a young human girl who goes by and yeah, she's been in this tribe for a little while. She's got sort of matted hair. She's got a sort of dirty face. She's somewhat of a little explorer, a little mischief maker, and yeah, Serene, a young human girl.
All right, can you add that to the trailer, or do you need me to?
I think I got it. Let's see.
Now, the most interesting part about the scene now is that we created these NPCs that we're already probably fleshing out in our heads, but you don't necessarily get to play the NPC that you created. You don't actually remember the system for it, but is it me, the lens, who gets to choose, or I just pick one and then someone picks one in a draft format?
Well, the way I read it was like you can require or ban different characters, and then we go around in a circle and we pick like who we want to play, and we could pick like characters that you add or banned at the beginning, or that you added at the beginning or not, until there's only those characters left, and then you have to pick those. But otherwise, you play the character that you made. So,
Okay.
like, if you had said there has to be the chief of the lizards and the chief of the humans, and then we go around, and you would normally pick last. But if, like, you know, the chief of humans is left at the end, then that's what you have to pick, essentially. So that's where the sort of draft thing comes in with whatever characters are left.
Interesting. So then we all are locked into our NPCs?
For this specific scene, yeah. But someone else could play one of these same NPCs later and be a different person playing her in a different scene.
Gotcha.
Or him.
All right. So then that is locked as me playing Chief Alto. Guess we don't really need to name this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Tyler on Kalak. And we got Harry on Bushar. And obviously Alex on Serene. So then it's now up to me to set this scene. And we actually start in a very vibrant and humid swampland. We come across Kalak Thar, the deemed leader of these humans, and a rugged-looking girl walking through this mucky, hot swampland as about 15 other human, we're going to just call them survivors at this point, are walking through, trudging. They look famined. They look hungry. They look tired more than anything. They're dirty. They're looking for food. And they come across what almost looks like a shelter. Not man-made, but a shelter nonetheless. The people look to Kalak. An older woman looks like she's not too many more days left if she doesn't get some kind of attention, some kind of food. And they ask, when will we find food? When will we find shelter, Kalik?
And Kalik will kind of turn and look at the rest of his Corton behind him, his tribe in another sense. It seems that this world wants us to make what we can of it. Any food that we desire, we must find ourselves, Corton of mine. Come. At least we can have this small kindness of a shelter. And I would look back at the shelter and look back at this small, wandering, wayward tribe of mine. They are emaciated, broken. I see the little girl, Serene, standing in the back. And I would look back at the shelter and look back at the group. I'd say, women and children stay behind. The rest of us, we shall do what we can. Hopefully nothing lurks here as well. And I would step down into the thick mud and water or surrounding my island and move towards the one that has the shelter on it.
And what I'm going to do is push. It's called a push. I technically shouldn't actually even be doing this in the first scene, but I'm going to say that as you approach the shelter, and this is something that can be voted upon if you guys have a better idea, you come across a nest of eggs. About 6 of them.
I'd probably glance about, looking to see if there was some sort of a creature watching over them. And if there wasn't, I would gingerly approach and check the eggs out, make sure. We'll probably pick one up and smell it, see if they're not rancid, essentially.
And you actually tell me, are they rancid or not?
No, I think they're warm, as if whatever they might belong to is left. Are they big eggs?
I would say, if you're going to throw it to me, I'd say yes. I think it's more your call because you can describe what you're perceiving. But if you're throwing it to me, I'll say yes, they are pretty much like medium-sized eggs.
I'd kind of hold it in my hand gingerly. I think this is the first time we've actually been into these swamps. For the most part, we've been ranging along the plains and keeping to normal forests where we thought we'd actually find food. And we've come across other eggs before and eaten them, and they've been good. They provided nourishment. So I look down at these 5 eggs, and I look back at the 15 or so humans behind me, and I'd pick up 3 of them, and I'd hand them to the men that travel with me and say, hand these back to the women and children, the old. And I'd pick up the other 2, and I would hand them to the other 4 or 5 men behind me, and I would not partake, knowing that everybody else was just as hungry as me and knowing that they are my first priority.
And meanwhile, as you look back, you probably wouldn't notice this, but as the eggs are being passed around, Serene is not with the group. She's sort of as usual for her, kind of snuck off on her own, and as all this has been happening, has actually made her way away to sort of explore around and see what might be around this small encampment or structure with these eggs. And she is sort of prowling through the swamp, trying to be as sneaky as possible. And she kind of looks up at one point and finds just emerging from the murky, swampy water right in front of her 2 eyes open. These yellowy eyes with just vertical slits in them. And she kind of takes a few steps back, and as just right in front of her, emerging from the swamp, is this massive figure, probably 7 feet tall, that just shoots out of the water. And I think this would probably be Bouchard, who is laying in an ambush in these waters.
Okay, so I think Bouchard would be in ambush and watching over these eggs is kind of like that's his sort of his job while his chief is out with a hunting party, probably on his way back. So he's thinking like how he's going to sort of protect these eggs from all of these strange, fleshy, like slightly hairy creatures, which he's never encountered before. So, doing what any good predator would do, he's going to pick off the weak ones first. So, having spotted this small creature coming sort of towards where he's lying, lurking in wait, he would spring into action as this little girl's thing approached. Rising up out of the water, looking down at this small thing, with the slits of his eyes narrowing. He would have in his hand a sort of just vicious-looking, probably wooden club. And embedded within it would be like the spines off the back of a basilisk, hefting his rite of passage in the tribe. He would just spring into action immediately, try and just smash this girl apart.
And
Not
back
hesitate.
at camp, people are sort of passing out eggs, excitedly, sort of starting to try to break them open. They're pretty tough. They're having a hard time. And as the rejoicing sort of begins, and the people are finally going to be able to eat and not go hungry, laughter is about, and suddenly a scream, just a high-pitched scream, pierces through from maybe 120, 130 feet away, in this swamp, sort of behind some foliage where you can't see what's going on. Just this strident scream pierces of a little girl, only for a few seconds, and then a dull thud and silence.
And as that scream echoes across, only a few kilometers away, you see this hulking lizard-like creature, bipedal, adorning these necklaces of bones. He carries this big spear and has behind him the slain animal with its skin removed. He looks to his men with him, 6 strong, and kind of instantly goes into that predator sense. His lizard, reptilian-like eyes scanning the area, his tongue kind of lapping out, tasting the air. He tastes blood in the air, but it's an unfamiliar, sweet taste. He looks to one of his men, Nurgrund, and says that came from Bouchard's area. He was watching the eggs of the young. A good breed, a strong breed. Perhaps something is trying to take them. And with that, he snaps, and these 6 warriors instantly start charging towards the scene. And he sees these fleshy-like creatures, hideous, something he's never seen before. And they have their eggs, the eggs of the next kin, their next strong warriors of their tribe. And it seems like they're trying to eat them. Well, Alto, He is the predator of this land. His kin are not food. These fleshy creatures will feed his young, which are soon to be born. And with that, spears fly towards the humans of Kalak Thar. When Kalak Thar sees these 6 spears lash out across the swamplands, what happens?
I think the moment that he hears the scream, Kalak's eyes would like whip up from watching the rest of his Kathan eat or try to start eating, and he would like look at each member, and then he'd realize the Serene wasn't there. And the most unnerving part of this is the Serene is his daughter. So Kalak Thar stands to his feet and sprints through the water. I mean, and he is no small man. He stands 6.5 feet tall, well muscled, his head balded, but painted on his face from a strange flower they found marks him as the Kalak. Yellow, red, and blue stripes cross down his eyes and along his face, showing the number of times he has won in a succession battle. And hefting in his hand is the long rock, which he has used many times to kill creatures larger than he. And from the many times that he has swung it, the edge is sharpened. And as he sprints off into the woods, the feathered hilt swinging in his hand, he would see the scene of Ushar and Serene. And his rage would overcome him. Any hopes that he might have had of speaking with other sentient creatures leaves him as he turns himself over to the rage. And as he sprints through the water towards Bouchard, he would lift the stone axe, club, sword thing in his hand and swing it towards him.
Now, before we go any further, have we answered the question?
I feel like we've answered the question.
Yep. I think we have.
Because they were looking for their eggs.
Yep.
Yeah, looking to protect their eggs. Yeah, and those main hunting group were looking.
So
their eggs have gone. Yeah.
As nasty as this is, we don't actually get to see the outcome of the scene because we answered the question.
I think it's better that way.
Yeah.
So they were looking to protect their eggs, protect their kin. Our eggs, we'll keep it. All right. That was our first scene. Do we want to take a quick 5-minute break? That actually took a little longer than I anticipated. So do we want to take like a 5-second water break / washroom break and then get back at her? Sound good?
Sure. 5 minutes sounds good.
All right. See you guys in a couple minutes. All right, I am back. Although I think I am the first back.
I never left.
Oh, damn.
um,
Plot twist.
yeah, I'm thinking of my thing.
Yeah, so this was a bit of a slow start, but what do you think so far?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I do want to do is just, can I, like, what was the focus again? I'll write it in that little.
The focus, I should have wrote it in the actual focus, was the arrival of man.
The actual like first steps. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. I'll just make. I thought it was that, but I just wanted to.
Yep. Let me put that in the focus.
So we can have it.
Yep.
Okay.
And then yeah, you have a lot more freedom now between periods, or it'd probably be hard to do a period.
Yeah, it's gonna be probably sticking in that. I'm probably gonna do an event.
Yep. There's also another thing that you can do. I should probably wait till Tyler gets back, but there's something called dictating a scene. And that is actually, instead of playing out a scene, you actually narrate it. So you still ask the same question, like what you want to get accomplished from the scene, but then you literally narrate the entire thing to us and answer that question. So it gives you the utmost control to make something happen.
I probably won't be doing that because I like everyone like taking part.
Yeah. I think Tyler should do that. I feel like he'd be really good at it.
Yeah, definitely. Right. I'm gonna think about badass event.
No pressure.
I think we have too much light as well.
Well, I feel like
look at all that yellow.
I feel like that scene that just happened wasn't
definitely dark.
Definitely dark.
Definitely dark.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you're not gonna have to worry about darkness coming from this. I think that we splashed in all the light at the very beginning, and now the rest of the game is gonna be dark.
Definitely.
Should be interesting though. I'm actually already getting a couple ideas for one shots now.
Yep. Same. Actually, I might dictate a scene.
You should, man. I think it's really cool.
It's not really my thing, but
yeah.
I'm way better at playing off people, but
yeah.
I'll wait. I'll just have to wait around.
You know, it'd be a cool idea though. Like, obviously, don't do this, but unless you really want to, because like the whole part of it is I'm not actually supposed to influence your turn at all. But if you actually like dictated the end of what we just went through, something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny actually. Just be ending just mass slaughter.
So what do you think so far, Alex? Thumbs up, dude. A little slower than I wanted to at the very beginning, but
A+.
Yeah,
really cool.
I think it's gonna get cool quickly.
Yeah. Well, if we do this again, then the first bit will be kind of half done because if we're gonna keep like the same age, like some of the no's and yeses will stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we can it won't take as long.
Like Alex said though, like what is it? How many campaigns? 2 now, potentially going on 3 that you've used Microscope to do the beginning of.
It's like one campaign where we started with Microscope, played a campaign in it, did another session of Microscope in the same world, and now we're playing like the second sort of chapter. But between each chapter, we get together and we build the world more like as a team.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about doing that for a while. Tell me like how much of a difference it does for like having the players actually help create the world. I almost imagine that like the immersion is so much more there because they understand the world. They basically
it's so awesome. And like coming up with characters that really fit the lore and fit the thing, like there's nothing better than having those people who man those characters be so invested in the world.
Yeah.
It's really a cool thing.
To me, Microscope is almost like a different way to do like a session 0 of a campaign.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do it more often now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to start doing it.
Yeah. That's basically what I've like kind of wanted to do. If I'm ever going to do a homebrew, it's going to be like a variation of this. Because if I'm going to...
Yeah. I kind of want to go back and do a Microscope game of a little Western game.
Yeah. That'd be cool. Waiting on Mr. Hurst again, like usual.
Tyler is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Yep. He's not late. He just rolled badly on the initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Ha! D&D puns.
Oh.
At least he's giving you lots of time to think of your...
Yeah.
What you do next.
Yeah, I'm still...
I was totally like caught up in explaining it, and then as I'm reading it, it's like, and now you should be the first person to go and create an event in a scene because you're supposed to show the players how it's done. And I'm like, fuck. I should have somehow pawned this off on Alex.
No, man, you're doing great.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here though, because now that I'm actually like in it, there's definitely like certain things that I would have forgotten without you.
I think we did the scene thing slightly wrong. Like,
probably
something like
we forgot to reveal thoughts.
Yeah, totally.
Which is a
very
cool moment, so we'll have to do that on the next scene.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, some of this like setup where you like have to say like I want to see this. Like you can ban or require certain categories.
Oh, really? That's a thing?
You can say like I want to ban like warriors or something.
Oh yeah, a certain type of people I think you can ban.
Yeah.
I remember that actually. Welcome back, Tyler.
Hey.
So how you feel it's going so far? Now that we're actually in the game.
It is very, very interesting. I kind of like the scene idea of it.
Yeah. So I was also explaining to Harry that there's one other further step, which is called dictating a scene. It's essentially the same setup. You ask a question, and then instead of picking characters and role playing it out, you literally just dictate the entire scene to us, narrate what happens, and answer the question yourself. So it's like the utmost control of a moment-to-moment thing. And that's pretty much the entirety of the game, is those 4 things that you can do.
Interesting. Okay, cool. I dig it.
And then the thing that I kind of like threw in there in the middle but didn't explain at all was pushing. And do you fully comprehend that, Alex? It's basically anytime that you are putting a concept onto a player that is not your own character, you push an idea, and then if somebody doesn't like it or thinks of something better, they're allowed to push their own idea, at which point we all vote on which idea we like better, and that's what happens.
Yeah, I've played Microscope like 5 times, and I have never used pushing or dictated scenes.
No? Interesting.
Pushing to me just seems like it would just break the flow too much, because it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
everybody stop. Now
Yeah,
we
yeah.
all say our ideas, and then we vote, and like it's this
That's fair.
whole thing in the middle of the narrative that, like, to me
Breaks it.
feels a little. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that makes sense. Well, anyways, so that we get back into it. let's
On
go-
that note, I actually kind of want to. I like the idea of pushing, but can we add it like a special rule to it that pushing can only be done by the person who first initiated the scene, and everybody votes on whether they agree with the push or not.
Sure. That's cool.
That way,
Yeah.
there's not everybody throwing in their ideas and discussing what push should be done, etc.
Yep. Sure. We can do whatever the heck we want. This is our game.
Yeah, exactly. Right, it's my go, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Um,
No pressure.
So the focus is the arrival of man. So I'm thinking an event. Let's think about how to concisely describe this. Basically, I want like the sort of that first like like that first encounter that ends in like the realization that like this isn't a nice place. This is now about just surviving the day to day. Trying to think, encounter with some like monster or something.
Sounds really cool. The first monster that we encountered. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a cool like first monster. Yeah, like the first. I'm gonna go with that. Like, yeah, this is like the first encounter with an owlbear that makes that ends in the realization that like they just have to survive like day to day. This is about survival. Yeah, we're
All
not
right.
the top of the food chain.
So put that in a sentence with the end conclusion somehow in that.
Definitely dark as all hell. So I click add a card. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
And then do I just type it in?
Would that be more of an event or more of a scene, do you think?
I guess it could be a scene either way. I was just
I
trying
think
to
that's
like
a scene you
save
could
it
probably
time.
dictate also though, because I don't think. I mean, we already know that they're gonna get stomped.
Okay, I can just have it as a scene like and dictate a little bit.
And to make a scene, I'm going to complicate this even a little bit more. You have to always nest things. So an event can only be in a period, and a scene can only be in an event. You can't have like a scene in a period or an event floating around in nothing. Everything needs to be nested.
What color are events?
So you could have like
this would need to be a actually it could be a scene nested within
the sun starts blazing. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Could even, for that matter, be within the first contact of lizard folk, and this is after they've encountered the lizard folk and are trying to scrounge to like.
Oh shit! Yeah. Okay, I've got an idea. Right, this is a scene
Oh,
nested within
dude, it could even be before the lizard folk because I described it as him having feathers on his club.
Oh dang!
Like maybe it's like a reminder, basically, that we're not the top of the food chain. That's why he carries feathers.
Okay. Cool. I like that. So right, I need to state the question for a scene. So,
And here we are already jumping in and saying things that we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I know. I need to state the question. The question would be, I guess, like, where is our place in this world? And then, I think that's an okay question. Kind of.
Yep.
Then I've got to set the stage. So, this is happening like before that previous scene with the lizard folks. It's happening before that. With the people that we've already, the NPCs that we made, I can't remember their names.
You can just click the scene.
The little girl, the little girl and the Kalok Thar and Serene. Right. Let's think. Is there any like specific way I have to dictate anything, or is it just narrate stuff? Okay.
Just narrate it. So basically, anything that you want to happen is happening. Picture this as like an intro to a D&D session, like when you're reading something that what we're seeing. Only it's a little more interactive because you're controlling characters too.
Okay. So it begins with Kalok Thar leading the way down a winding, dense game trail through a forest. Yeah, the Cathan. Yeah, leading his Cathan behind him, using his like stone spear thing, glaive, whatever you want to call it, using that to push vines out of the way. He's trying to he's sort of thinking like this is way too much noise, but with the 40 people that he's traveling with, there's just not a way he can mask it. So it's just hoping that nothing bad happens. He already lost 2 people yesterday. He doesn't want that to happen again. So he's just cutting his way through his sort of his couple of fellow warriors up and down that sort of dotted up and down the line, traveling behind him. And then he hears it, that sort of deep growl from his left. He halts his tribe with a raised fist, and with his glaive in front of him, he pushes off into the dense forest, emerging into a slight clearing. There's fur and feathers scattered around this sort of what looks like a nest. And the silence of the forest is cut with the sounds of screaming and roars of some terrible beast. He rushes back with his few warriors to the scene of just an absolute massacre. This hulking, bear-like creature with the face of an owl is just tearing its way through women, children, men, old people, just tearing its way through. This beast Hulk is just hulking like 15, 18 feet tall. He's just, with his glaive in front of him, he's just staring up at it, just dumbstruck, frozen, not sure what to do, not sure what he can do. But he puts aside his fears, his worries, and just charges in, not thinking of himself, only thinking of what's left of his people. The blood is splattered everywhere on this path. Leaves no longer green, now only red and shiny. He makes his attack, lunging for the underbelly of this thing as it's standing on its hind legs, swiping at anyone just stupid enough to get close. His stone blade catches this thing's stomach. It roars in pain. There's those thoughts going through his head of like, oh, I can do this. We can survive. But it only angers it. It tears away from him down the path, bowling over his people left and right, escaping away from his blade. But he's left with this devastation. His tribe now cut to 15 people. The rest lying in pieces. The screams echoing out through the forest. He's wondering if something else is going to hear them. So he goes to each dying person and slits their throats, silencing their screams. He takes a moment to gather some feathers from this fallen that have fallen from the creature and ties them to his spear. But they have to move on. He knows this. They can't stay in this forest. So he gathers the rest of his people and pushes on. And I think we'll end it there.
Cool. Very cool. So the question was, where are they placed in the world? correct?
Yeah,
And the answer would be
definitely right at the bottom. Yeah, from that.
Cool. So go ahead and add that scene in, and over to you, Tyler. We have 2 scenes now. What you got?
So to clarify, this has to happen on the arrival, yes?
It doesn't have to happen in the arrival. I kind of zoomed in the focus maybe a little more than I should have. But if you can find a way to relate to the arrival of men, but not be in the arrival of men in some way, like maybe in, just as an example, in the final period, there's actually a scene of like someone telling the tales of the arrival of men or something like that. I did definitely zoom it in maybe a little more than I should have, but do you kind of get what I mean? Where it doesn't necessarily need to be in this one period if you can find a way.
Okay, so I'm going to add something then. And so I'm going to add an event. And this is following these first 2 encounters, one with the first with the owlbear, the second with the lizard folk, right? And this event, shortly after suffering major losses, I'm going to say Kalakthar is still alive, though very badly wounded. He's on the brink of death, and the Cathan that's carrying him, they find an old abandoned, like a shrine of some sort, maybe a temple, and making their way inside for the first time ever. I mean, I'm going to say Serene's barely alive too, but for the first time ever, a life. Okay, so a life is saved not due to magical healing with a consequence. And when what the Cathan did is they knew they couldn't survive without Kalakthar. And so what they did is in this shrine, I'm just going to call it the Shrine of the Bargainer. They sold the rest of Serene's life to save Kalakthar's. And for the first time ever in this shrine, a life was saved due to magical healing.
Cool.
So what should I call it? Shrine of the Bargainer discovered or something?
Now, a scene can't, or no, sorry, an event has to not really be that vague. So you would literally just sentence, like write that in a sentence so that, let me think of how you could word that and feel, basically you write what is happening and the outcome. So a life is spared.
About that.
Shrine of Bargainer discovered, and the shrine's
life,
or Serene's life is saved. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Correct. Looks good. Yep. Now,
I'm actually going to label this as a dark thing because I'm going to say this is a turning point for Kalakthar.
Yep. That seems.
Wait, can it be dark and light? No, actually, I think it'd just be dark.
Yeah, no, that definitely seems.
That's not a scene, though. It's an event.
Yep. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm changing it for you.
Oh, you got it.
Yep.
Okay. And then, let's see.
That's sweet, man.
And I'm going to add a scene to this.
Now, sorry to cut you off, but only the lens gets to create 2 things.
Oh, I only got to create 1. Okay, cool. So that's fine. Shrine of the Bargainer.
Yep. We can explore this later, but as the lens, you get that extra thing to see the focus that much more, but everybody else only gets 1 thing. Okay, so cool. Over to Mr. Brady.
All right. I am adding an event in the first free human city. And I sort of like what we've done here with like sort of the mankind's beginnings being very mysterious and no one really knows how they got there. Even men are uncertain of anything that's sort of happened. But after all this, they've been through all this bullshit and they finally have their city and they're, you know, starting to come into their own. A lot of the scholars and people who are starting to be able to pursue things like philosophy and, you know, history and all this stuff are really starting to wonder hardcore, like, where did we come from? Where did all this start? Where is it going? And they send out expeditions of heroes to try to trace back the history of mankind. And during this time, there's a very prominent band of heroes that figures out what happened. And what they discover blows their minds. There was essentially this crazy astrological event that happened where a sun from a different plane of existence phased into the material plane. It wasn't there before. And this sun phased into the material plane, and it had a certain number of, planets and stuff orbiting it. And the humans were on one of these planets. And what happened was that based on the orbit around that sun and the orbit sort of the material plane world around the sun that was already there, the two planets collided. And there was just this cataclysmic event where it shook the Earth, and like essentially these two planets just hit each other in plain sight. And essentially Earth sort of they collided, and the way that this group of adventurers finds this is that they're sort of exploring down, tracing civilization back to its origins, and they find remnants of sort of these fantastic buildings and structures that are all made out of this strange metal, and that are buried deep, sort of under the ocean, where this part of their civilization collapsed and collided. And they start to uncover that, in fact, before crash landing here, their civilization was pretty developed before, and now they had to start fresh from zero upon arriving on this planet with no resources. And within a couple generations, everything was lost, and they were living like cavemen again.
Super cool.
So that's what happened. And I'm just going to go ahead and call this city Atlantis, because I think that sort of fits as a sort of underwater, abandoned, crash-landed city. And so I'm going to say the Chronicle Knights is the name of this organization that they send out, because it's a kingdom now, they have knights, but these are the Chronicle Knights, and their whole goal is to figure out what happened to them. And the Chronicle Knights discover Atlantis and reveal the humans' past. And that is an event in the Free Human City.
Sweet. Added in. And all right, that's super cool. And obviously a lights event. I like that. It's actually strange, but I was on a very similar plane or similar mindset of where humans came from, so that's cool. That brings me back to me, which means that my focus.
The humans are aliens, dude.
Yeah. Now legacies. This is another aspect of the game where the person to my theoretical right creates a legacy for this first focus. Have you played with this before, Alex? No, you haven't? So we can skip it if you want. But basically, a legacy are common threads that may stretch through times and influence history. A legacy can take forms in an object, a person, a place, bloodline, an organization, whole bunch of things. You, as the person to my right, get to identify what you want the legacy to be. and then you name it and create either an event or a dictated scene in this legacy, if that makes sense. If we don't like legacies, we can skip them because I actually forgot them in my first game of playing it either. But it's also a kind of a cool way to even further each.
I think it's cool. I really like this stuff about the bargainer, and I think
Yeah.
that should sort of play a major role in sort of the discovery of magic by humans, and that can definitely be something that sort of gives them an edge. Maybe nobody else is doing that or knows about the bargainer or knows about all this crazy magic, and so I would make the bargainer or the shrine of the bargainer a legacy to sort of explore throughout the thread of history.
Shrine of the Bargainer is your legacy.
Maybe just the bargainer, not limit it to his shrine.
The Bargainer. And
I can make a scene involving this. Oh, no, an event or a scene involving this.
And it has to be a dictated scene. It can't be a played out one. So you
an event or a dictated scene involving the bargainer. All right, we'll make an event in the binding.
Okay.
We will make an event in the binding. And the first hero, whose name is Salim, not to be confused with Serene, but Salim, the first hero. Yep. Salim assassinates Kolak Branvir to gain power based on a deal that he made with the bargainer.
That sounds pretty sweet. Pencil that shit in right meow.
And that is my event. So I will add it between these two events. Let's see, add card. Yep. Oh shoot. Did I do that right?
And while he's adding that, that switches over to you now, Harry, as the focus or the lens.
Oh shit. Okay. I think I want to focus on
I think I just did the stupidest thing in the world on this thing. Sorry.
What?
No worries.
Can someone fix that?
Oh yeah, I see the top there. Okay. I want to focus on like the sort of that creation of the first human city. Is that
That's fine.
Is that the right way to word that? I think that's pretty nice.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
yeah, that creation.
All right. So once you have that as the next chosen focus, you get to create two things: either a period and event, or an event and a period or scene.
Okay, so I'm going to create a period. So let me just check. I'm going to do periods correctly. So it's going to be between the binding and the first free, obviously. First free city. So I think what would happen, let's see. The freed humans travel to a new place. Travel to a new place, and let's think of a good way to. You have to end it, right?
Yeah, you have to put the outcome. If it's an event,
okay.
if it's an event, you have to put the outcome of it.
No, it's a period.
Oh, period. Then no, I don't think you end it. You just name it.
Okay.
Yeah, the first thing you do is you forget about like naming it and just sort of explain what it's about in your head to us using your own words without worrying about like the concise thing, and then put a name at the end that will remind us of what you said.
Okay, so the free humans, they travel to some place within the world, and they just start trying to like make it safe. Like they're all just like banding together, like working together as a collection of tribes, just making this like, you know, valley or whatever, protected valley, and making it like just free from shit that's trying to kill them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Cool. That would
so it's less of a traveling period. Would it be more like a traveling period, or more of like a sort of securing period?
I think it would be more of a securing period.
What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think like.
And is this like all the humans together are like freed they're all free at the same time, and they like Exodus style, or how do you see it happen?
I don't think it would be all of them. I think it would be quite a lot for sure, but not all.
Awesome.
So I'll just call it like the free humans carve out a life or something like that. Right, how do I edit this thing?
I like the idea of an exodus, because if they're all living under enslavement of these dwarven lords and all of a sudden like everybody leaves, that kind of reminds me of some kind of exodus. Huge migration. I don't know if that's a cool name.
Yeah, because I kind of want to encompass both and then have like the first event as the exodus. That makes sense?
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
So this is like the establishment phase of that first city. Like right down to like the very start. So I'll think about the name, like how to summarize that way better, but I'll just put that first event in as the Exodus, which starts with them leaving their sort of subjugation and traveling, and it ends with them finding this like perfect location. Is that clear? Cool.
Yep. Yeah, man.
Okay. Right, you can go on to the next person while I just write this in.
Okay. On to
Okay. So we basically got this lens of the Exodus of them all leaving. And so they're free now. They're looking for the perfect place. Your event that you're having is that they're leaving. Is that they're all going to look?
Yeah, it's it's quite a large like yeah. I think it would end in them leaving and finding the perfect place. Like starts, they're leaving, they find the perfect place.
Okay, interesting. I'm gonna add an event in this from along the way as they're searching for this perfect place, and it's gonna be the emergence of a new material, a new something that nobody kind of has like really ever thought to use before. Kind of like how oil was always kind of just used for lamps until like they figured out you can use it for cars, and it's gonna be a metal. It's gonna be a metal called. I'm gonna call it a Velatium. So in their journeyings, in their searching, they find a material called Velatium. A easy to forge metal that is highly durable after being forged. So a huge one up for the humans, I'm thinking. And that's just going to be an event. That's after. Okay. There's my event.
nice. On to you, Mr. Alex.
So I'm thinking of a scene. And this scene is going to be under the event that Harry created earlier. The event, the first hero, Selim, rallies the enslaved and is slain. He then rises to godhood. So there's going to be a scene in there. And bear with me, this is going to... Actually, before I get started, Tyler, how does your event relate to the focus?
You're on mute, buddy.
You're on mute.
Okay. So the foundation of the first city, the reason why I think this would be so huge, the foundation of the first city, is because now suddenly the humans who weren't able to protect themselves before without striking bargains now have a means. Suddenly they can protect themselves. They've got this metal that they can use to build, that they can use to actually create weaponry that a soldier can use to defend something. Whereas before it's just like stone, wood, and bone. And bronze, I
Awesome.
guess, but bronze is super like easy to break. So
Awesome. So yeah, this scene is going to be in the first hero, Selim rallies the enslaved and is slain, and then he rises to godhood. And I want to tie this in to the first free human city. And the way that I want to do that is through the question. And I have to think how to word this question properly that will be cool and make sense. And tie everything in. So I'm going to say my question is, okay, here we go. I'm just going for it. My question is, how does Salim's prophecy drive the humans to found the city, the first city, to found their first city? That's my question. How does Salim's prophecy drive the humans to found their first city?
Oh shit. Let's find out.
How are we doing scenes again?
So just basically underneath it, add a card, and then
Add a card.
Yeah, and then ask the question.
Sweet. How does Salim's prophecy help the humans first city? Good. All right, and so in this scene, so this is in the event the first hero, Salim, rallies the enslaved and is slain, and then he rises to godhood. So within this scene, I'm going to set the stage. So when does the scene happen? So the scene happens during a dwarven holiday that they are celebrating. And a lot of the dwarves are sort of drunk. And the humans have this whole plan set up. And Salim is essentially leading them out of the city at this point. The whole plan is set up. It's being put in action. And humans are some sort of opening in the walls that they've arranged for. Maybe they have some dwarves on the inside working with them that are against slavery, and essentially the whole thing is happening. And the setting of this scene is the alarm has just been rung. Everybody's in the middle of escaping. It's the dead of night. All the dwarves are like drunk, and they're sort of not paying attention. That's why they chose this moment to make their big escape. But Salim is helping usher people out. He's passing people through this door, and the dwarves realize something is happening. The alarm starts getting sounded, and everybody's panicking. I'm going to, in this scene, Salim is going to be a player character. So someone's going to be playing Salim. And someone... and that's it. Let's see what else people come up with. So at this point, let's see. So I answered Review the established facts. I think that's good. What just happened? What's going on? Yeah, he's ushering people through the gate, getting his people out of there, and the alarm just got rung. So now we go around and we choose characters, and I choose last.
Okay, so that goes to me next.
Yep, perfect.
Now, I think I want to add time as a character, which is another thing you can do, and I want it to be the guards looking for Salim. So this giant dwarven force, which is inevitably going to find Salim and his entourage.
Awesome.
Okay. I think. I think I'm gonna play a dwarf called, let's think. He's gonna be called. Let's think. Oh, I'm so bad with names. He's gonna be called Sven. Do I need to say anything more about him?
Nope.
Nope.
What's his name? Sorry, you can add it as the NPCs.
Yeah, I'll add it in. It's fine.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this dwarf? Like, is he one of the guard?
He is one of the dwarves which is helping Salim.
Awesome. All right, Ty, you doing it?
Yeah, and I am going to add the son of Kulik Branvir, and his name is Asher. And Asher, being the son of Kulik Branvir, is aware of the prophecy and the fact that Salim killed his father.
Dude, that is dope. And I have no choice, so I will play Salim. And now we go around and we reveal thoughts. So that's, what is your character thinking right at the start of this scene? And we go around in the same order. So time, I don't think has any revealed thoughts, but so
Yeah.
Starting with Sven, what is Sven thinking right
now? I think he is. He's got these thoughts of like doubt in his head. Like he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's still not sure about betraying his own kind. So he's got that sort of conflict within his brain.
Awesome.
Asher is thinking, I'll kill him in the confusion. I will kill him for killing my father. I will kill him for touching my sister.
Wow. All right, so Salim hears the alarm go off, sees his people start to panic, but he is not panicking. A slight smile crosses his face, and what he is thinking right now is, this is it. This is my moment. I really hope the bargainer will come true on his promise, because this is the time that I need to take advantage of this pact that I made with him. And as he's sort of thinking this, he turns to his sort of second in command or helper here that has been helping this entire escape the whole time, standing next to him, Severe, and he says, "My friend, it should not be known that you helped us by your people. I would not want no trouble to come to you because of what you've done. You've helped us this far, and I could not ask for more. If you wish to leave with our people, do so. If not, stay out of my way." And he kind of turns around. What is Sphere doing?
Sphere would look at you and say, "I've come this far, Salim. I'm a dwarf of my word. I will not abandon you here. I will see this through."
Very well. I did kind of I was trying to say spend and I said severe, so that got confusing. But
yeah, someone added in the secondary.
That's fine. Keep it canon. Keep it.
Yeah, awesome.
He's second in the secondary command.
Yeah, there would be a sort of network of dwarves working together.
Yeah.
And he sort of says, "Very well then, take your men and just try not to be around when the fighting starts." And he kind of looks down nervously.
Nods his head and would then retreat into the scenes. It's at that point that the horn is droning on, the sound of alarms, and as you are tucked away in this little kind of alleyway of stone, you hear the footsteps of hundreds of dwarves, the yells that the slaves have escaped. Find them and kill them. You watch as a patrol of guards run by where you're currently hiding, just barely not noticing you.
I'm going to say Asher. As everybody else is fleeing, kind of Salim staying behind, it seems, to kind of hold the line. Asher would duck into the side of a building, and he would crouch down onto the ground where he has taken one of the throwing axes of the dwarves, and he kind of hefts it in his hand and waits for the most perfect moment. And he just watches from the shadows as Salim and whatever number of his guards prepare to hold the line, essentially, for the rest of the people to escape.
And as you do so, you sort of see Celine, and as everybody's like, at this point, panic is happening. People are rushing towards this opening, towards this door. People are almost walking over each other. But one person is sort of fighting against the fray, pushing his way up through people left and right, going the opposite direction of where everybody's fleeing. And as he does so, and as the dwarven guard sort of start to close in around, alarms start sounding. They're not really sure yet if they should attack on sight, because these are still their slaves. I mean, they have value. They're not just going to sort of start slaughtering everyone, but they're sort of trying to maneuver them around and get them basically calmed down and back in obedience. You see a ray of light sort of emerge from the crowd as just a beam of light emerges from Salim's cheek and strikes outward, casting just flame and radiant death upon an entire battalion of dwarves just from the crowd. And a zone just sort of instantly appears around him. People get scattered, and he's surrounded by a clearing. And you see that he's floating 2 or 3 inches above the ground. This would be sort of your moment, as he's sort of alone, floating a few feet above the ground with just one beam of singular beam of light coming from sort of out of his cheek that has just struck a battalion of dwarves.
Right. So Sven wouldn't be too far away from this scene, seeing his own people getting just butchered by Salim, and those thoughts would sort of race through his mind, like, is this what I wanted? All this bloodshed? His hand would tighten around the hilt of his sort of long dagger, which he has in his hand. And he'd start to just cry, seeing his own people being killed in this way. I mean, although they've been oppressing these humans for decades, he still doesn't think this is right to do. And he'll just try and move up to approach Salim, like shouting out, like, please, no more. We've gone too far. His eyes are burning from the radiant light that's being emitted from Salim. Would Salim react at all?
Before Salim reacts, I'd like to see what Asher is doing too.
So Asher, seeing him like rising up and like blowing everything to smithereens, radiant light, essentially disintegrating dwarves. He takes the axe and he puts it in his teeth, biting onto the haft, and he grabs onto this low hanging kind of like a vine trestle on the side of this house, and he kind of crawls up it, climbing onto the stone roof. And as he stands there, Sven, your eyes would go past him, and you'd see Asher standing on the roof, and he'd pull this axe out of his mouth. And Salim, if you were to look and turn and look and see where he's looking, Asher would be shouting over the din, over the roar. You might have been promised to unite them, Salim, but I know the price you paid, and I will lead them. And I lift the axe and throw it at Salim.
Muted.
You throw the axe straight at Salim, and as you do, another burst of energy, as the axe is flying through the air, goes and hits another battalion of dwarves. At this point, almost all the humans have gone. More beams of light are emerging by the second from Salim's body as he is essentially destroying his own body to hold the line almost single-handedly against these dwarves who are now, the humans were scattering, the dwarves are scattering at this point. The humans are getting away. And as the axe impacts straight into his chest, he sort of falls down to his knees. The last strands of radiant light are just blowing out of him, more and more powerful, as you see that wisps start to appear. He's barely fading on to existence. And he kind of looks up and says, "No, not yet. I have something to say." And his voice starts to get very, very quiet to a whisper, down to the point where the only person in this entire place who can hear him is Sven. And Sven, at this point, he was hovering above the ground, and you approached him with your dagger, saying, "No, no more." And he reaches out a hand and puts it on your shoulder and says, "The prophecy. The deal has been struck. Mankind will found a city. They will found a city of their own. And from it, a great kingdom. They must search. They must search for the ruins of Atlantis. For from those, they will gather what once they knew and rebuild it. This knowledge lies in your hands, Sven. I hope you make the right choice." And with that, he disappears into a burst of energy, and like just a shroud of sort of radiant light shoots upwards into the sky as the last of the dwarven guard that are around this area just burst into flames, and he's sort of up in the sky at this point. The awe of the people just like sort of looking up of what just happened, this giant firework. And that is it for Salim. He's said his prophecy, and only this dwarf, this conflicted dwarf, was the only one to hear it.
Right, I think Sven would just be just dumbstruck. His face probably just scarred and burnt from this light that was burning out from Salim, seeing his people just left as piles of ash and bronze weapons. He would just grab his dagger more firmly and cut into his palm and promise to Salim that he would lead the humans to their new place, knowing now that he has no home left to go to. He'd have to find a new one, make a new one. He would leave the city with the rest of the humans, leaving behind that trail of blood. I think have we answered the question?
I think so. Let's see. How does Salim's prophecy help the humans found the first city? I guess
prophecy butchered a bunch of dwarves.
And also found their shepherd towards the new
yeah,
city.
it's like he named like the shepherd that was going to lead them there. Or yeah.
Good.
Nice. That was totally
sick, guys.
totally different from what I was thinking it might have been. It was awesome.
All right. While he's answering that, it goes to me, doesn't it? Or does it go to me? Who created that scene? That was
me.
That was you, so that does go to me. All right. Okay. I think I am going to create an event going back to the foundation of the first city. So with Svend being their shepherd, I'm going to create an event of Svend leading the humans through the scorched lands and finding Atlantis. Does that work? Or does that kind of... I guess that kind of is the event that Harry created, but more detailed, or does that work?
It was like this. It was they. My event was they found just the perfect place. I didn't really. So whether that's, then again, Atlantis has been discovered in another event.
I felt like Atlantis to me was the ruins of when the planets collided, and this ruins of like this ancient thing that would be separate from the new city that they're founding. That's more on mainland.
That makes sense then. So,
and for the name of the city, the first human city, I think it should be named the City of Salim.
Yeah, just call it Salim. That's what I think.
Okay, yeah, that works for me. So the perfect place then is the City of Salim. Is that what we're going with? Just so I can go back.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. Right.
Okay. So let's rename that. That makes sense to me. Yes. Leave the old master and find the City of Salim. And my event will be that Sven leads them to Atlantis, which is going to be across the Scorched Lands. The Scorched Lands.
Question, can it not be like Atlantis specifically? Can it be like a variation of it, like Atlantis or Atlantis?
Sure.
I
mean, I think it's just Atlantis is like the placeholder.
Is it a placeholder name?
Well, it's in quotes, so
yeah.
I assume it is.
Okay, cool.
Is it a placeholder name then?
I don't think we necessarily have to call it Atlantis.
Okay, cool.
To me, it was just sort of an abandoned city, and because it was under the sea, I felt like that was like...
Under the sea.
Sebastian over there.
But yeah, I could have any name.
Okay, I'm gonna name it then.
Oh, yeah, I have this. I need to write this down. I have the coolest idea for a one shot. I'll say this, like, I know it's like, I don't know, should I say this? Probably could. It's not like an event or anything like that. So I think like the City of Salim should be like built on top of the ruins of Atlantis, like whatever we call Atlantis.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Sven leads humans across the Scorched Lands to the ruins of Veramet, I'm going to call it. And I'm going to learn.
Yeah, and that makes way more sense too, because with the other event where they discovered this crazy metal, I have a feeling that could be like meteor metal, like metal that literally doesn't exist on this plane of existence, and it was only introduced when this thing crashed, which is why no one else knows how to use it or knows where to find it. Those two things could play into each other.
Yep, and this would be before fighting the City of Salim. Surprisingly, I think I'm actually going to make it dark. Interestingly enough. Now, do I have to explain why it's dark, or can I just leave it at that?
I think maybe a little bit about why it's dark.
So just because it doesn't really hurt to tell you where I'm at, I think it would be dark because they would realize that they'll never truly get to go home and that this land has to be their home? Or does that contradict them realizing too early where they're from?
The only thing I think this contradicts is it contradicts the Chronicles Ninth purpose of finding Veramet to begin with. I mean, if Sven leads them to Veramet, then what's the point of going to find Veramet?
Sorry.
I get that.
You could say that he leads them to found the city of Salim. Like, he leads them essentially to the promised land. I mean,
Yeah.
it's such hard, like, Moses vibes here.
For
I mean,
sure.
he's even a freaking shepherd.
Shit. Okay.
I
so he
mean, it
leads
could
them-
work, because perhaps like they find this cool like area with all this mineral, and they found a city there. But the exploration actually takes place of them sort of delving
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, underneath. Yeah, the exact same
underneath,
idea.
underwater, and like so the Chronicle Knights don't actually like go out and explore the land and look for stuff, but rather they delve deep into this base of ruins that they're actually built upon and start to uncover secrets. That could sort of work. That's not what I had in mind when I made it up, but
Well, yeah,
it
I mean,
can
if it's
be
underwater,
adapted.
you'd have like some underwater lake.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, for sure. We could still
Like the
actually.
city, like sunk into it.
Sorry, I'm confused how I contradicted. What am I contradicting of yours, Tyler?
No, it's not of mine. So over in the first free human city, the Chronicle Knights are tasked with finding Veramet and the human origins. If they've already found Veramet, why would they need to go find it again? Because in yours, you're saying Sven leads them to Veramet.
Right. I can see that. Yeah.
My original idea with the Chronicle Knights is that the humans had formed this other city, Salim, and that once they had like sort of established and they were done just having to survive from day to day, their next big goal was to find out
So
what their past was, and they started sending these knights out to explore their own history and
so
try
I
to
got
chronicle
something.
it.
I got something.
There's
And
a
that's
very
how they found
simple.
Veramet.
It's a very simple fix in the wording of the other one. Just change discovery of Veramet to exploration. Like
What
they're
if-
just like digging into the ancient history, etc.
What if I add this to my event that Cheven hides the truth behind where humans come from, therefore burying it in history for a very long time?
It'd be kind of cool if he built over Veramet, but he never told anybody that Veramet was beneath him. Like, so these Chronicle Knights could still be trying to find it, but it's literally right beneath them.
And keep in mind also that Sven really only knows what Salim told him in the prophecy,
Right.
which was, seek the ancient city of Veramet. That is where the humans will found their first beginnings of civilization. And so he doesn't know what that means, and he has to interpret it, but he knows that that's what he's looking for, and has some sort of sense of divine direction or something that helps him know where he's going, maybe.
Yeah, he sees that meteor crash with the Valantium or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So
Or maybe he would have been more cryptic in the prophecy and been like, so find the...
Follow the brightest star in the east. In the sky. There you will find the baby,
Baby Jesus.
baby Jesus.
So are we good with the event, or does it still contradict?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think it still works.
All right. Cool. We'll leave it with that then. And that brings it, back to me for a legacy. And this can be out. So I'm going to create a legacy of Schwend. And I am going to add a event in the binding, because this doesn't have to relate to the focus at this point.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Where Svend is betrayed by Bronvier. How do I word this? Where it basically changes his perspective of slavery. Anyone have a clue how I could word that?
Okay. Yeah. I have. Do you want me to help you? Or you could.
I don't necessarily need to know how, per se. We can explore that in a scene, but just how to word, basically, Svend starting to see that the slavery of humans isn't such a good thing.
I don't know. Maybe.
Betrayed by Branvier.
Someone or something changes his perspective. Maybe. That's a good way to word that.
His perspective of slavery. Perspective of slavery. Is that still too vague, you think, or is that good enough?
If it were me, I'd try to be a little bit more precise about exactly what event causes that.
Okay.
Event.
So, Kalek Bronvier kills Sven's secret wife, who is a human?
That's cool.
Okay. Changing his perspective of slavery. We good with that?
Yep.
All right.
That's awesome. Why does Kalek Branvier, why would he kill one of his own people?
Something we can answer and something else.
I guess so, yeah. That's cool, yeah. That's awesome.
All right. So, Tyler, you're the focus. We'll go until Alex gets to be the focus, and then we'll end it. How are we doing for time? We're pretty late, but...
Like 25 plus 7. I don't know what that is. Like 2
see if we can give at least each person a chance at being the focus, and then we'll end it. So what do you want to focus on, Tyler?
Okay, the focus.
I'm fading pretty fast. I wouldn't mind ending after Tyler's focus.
Yeah, that's cool too, actually.
So essentially the focus, I just choose an age, right? Where
can be anything. It literally doesn't have to be a
person. It could be a faction, a religious order. You can make something up and have that be the focus. It doesn't have to be something that's already in the game. You can explain something and be like, this is the focus.
Okay. I'm actually going to add... I'm going to add a period. I'm going to add a period following the Exodus, which I'm going to call the Dawn War. And essentially, this is going to be dark. I'm kind of considering this as being like the final test of humanity before they're allowed to really be free. And the Dawn War. So what do I got to do now that I've done this? I created a period, and now I got to create an event, right, or a scene or something.
So basically, you created a focus. The focus, I'm assuming, is the Dawn War.
Mm-hmm.
So then, at that point,
then if you created a period, you make a scene nested in that period.
No,
I mean, an event.
An event. Okay. So the event I'm going to create, nested in this period, is the Shahs of the Dwarf. So basically, like, they're dwarven kings. I'm kind of making this dwarven Islamic. So the Shahs of the Dwarves unite with Let's just say, what's another? What would be another good culture? Unite with the hordes. I'm gonna make the elves kind of primal. The elves are hordes. So the two of them, they broker an alliance. Okay, so the Shaws of the Dwarves broker an alliance with the hordes of the elves to reclaim their escaped slaves.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, on to Alex.
That's awesome. And so your focus is the Dawn War.
Yes. Their last fight for freedom, basically.
Oh man, that doesn't leave me much time to think. Let's see. All right, well, I'm fading on ideas here. I'm gonna add an event in the Dawn War. That is going to be called the Battle this period. So this is between Exodus and the first free human city. Have the humans at this point during the Dawn War made it to Varamet?
Let's say,
Even though they haven't really founded a city there, or are they still on their way?
I want to say that they're at Varamet and they're in the middle of constructing their city.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to call this event the Battle of Ghosts. And what happened in the Battle of Ghosts is that essentially these armies, these hordes, and these dwarven clansmen basically arrived united to Varamet. And seeing that they were far outnumbered, the humans were sort of stuck inside the city. They knew that the attack was going to be the next day, and they were screwed. But during that time, somebody found this passage into Varamet proper, into what lies beneath the city, this half-buried megatropolis of a city. And what happened is the humans all gathered and went down beneath the these sort of trapdoors, or this hidden passage into Verimet. So they've got like this partially constructed city with sort of shitty walls and whatnot on the outside that looks like some sort of town, but then below that, hidden, you've got the actual ruins of Verimet. And what the humans do when they discover this is they all go hide in the ruins of Verimet. And within these ruins is a sort of temple. And the entire human population is free up to this point, go there. Or in this, just barely no food, no drink. They just sit there and they're in prayer. And what's happening on the outside is that the elves and the dwarves sort of raid the city and find it to be a complete ghost town. There's no one anywhere in there. And essentially, they look around and they are unable to find the entrance to the ruins of Verimet in this human city, despite countless hours of not knowing where these humans went, what's going on, why is this city abandoned. They leave. But before they do, they start finding artifacts in like vestiges, and over the course of these days, of these 6 days, the fragile alliance between the dwarven clans, or not clans, you said, what were they called? Whatever they're organized into.
Shahs.
The Shahs and the hordes start to bicker about who is going to get to keep all this awesome stuff that they're finding in the city. And since they have no common enemy or no one to fight, they start bickering amongst each other and essentially end up turning on each other and laying waste over who gets to control this newly discovered, these artifacts and these things. And the two armies lay waste to each other. And after the 6 days, the humans are able to emerge and finish off the stragglers. So that is the Battle of Ghosts. And it's called the Battle of Ghosts because it was essentially a ghost town when the two armies converged.
Cool.
So I can add that here. The Battle of Ghosts. Dwarves and elves converge on the ruins of Vermont. I'll log this in while the next person plays.
Yeah, so I guess that's me. Just to, geez, what am I going to do? I think I'm going to create an event too. And this event is going to take shortly after the Battle of Ghosts. And in the ruins of Vermont, a godlike entity is discovered named Salim, who guides humans into does that actually, I don't think that revolves around the Dawnmore, does it? No. Damn it. Trying to think. I guess the only thing really to do at this point is create a scene in your event that you just created. And my question will be, what causes the elves and dwarves to break alliance? Or did you answer that? You didn't answer that, eh? It just basically broke. So we'll do a scene, and then there'll be Harry, and then we're done. So let's do that. I'll wait for you to actually post it up, or I guess I can add the scene. What causes the fractured alliance of dwarf and dwarfshaw and elf hordes? What causes the fracture? This is going to be a scene. And so the first thing I do is establish the setting, right? So what this is going to be is after over a 10-day of searching for the slaves, there is still no signs. Tensions are high. Suspects of treachery linger. They are currently, you said they retreated into the ruins. So they are currently above ground in the beginning structures of Vermet. Make sense to everybody? And NPCs, I am going to create now. Tyler, would like a Shaw have like a certain name for a leader type character, or?
Well, a Shah is a leader.
Okay.
A Shah is essentially like a king. It's like an Islamic. It's like a king in. It's like almost like a king in Iran.
Okay. We haven't established who that is, so I'm going to say that the character the Dwarven Shah Revnek is somebody that needs to be played. What do you want to create for an NPC, Harry?
So, okay. I kind of want to play something to do with time, but I just need to quickly think. So I think the time would be like the sunrise is coming, and like this is like the start of the 11th day, which is like the agreed like end of the alliance. Like they all thought it would be done by now, so they've got to like come to an agreement before the sun comes up. Does that make sense?
You're muted, Alex, if you're trying to say
That's
something.
so cool, and it goes really well with the title of the Dawn War.
Yeah, so that's
Yep.
my time plans are like I'll try and push like a little bit, not using the mechanic, but you know, like I'll just describe something. I'll try and play some.
So your time, the dawn.
Yeah, the dome.
Cool. What about you, Tyler? What do you want, or characters?
I am going to play the bargainer.
Oh, damn. You're muted again, Alex. Sorry.
I will play Ethanzar, the elven chieftain of the horde.
Yep.
We're stuck with Revnik.
I get stuck with the old Revnik. Yep.
Yeah, the elven Khan.
Cool. So you want to just enter in his name there for me real quick so I can say it. And I will start, I guess, describing the actual scene. And what we see is over a great fire, tents have been made around the outskirts of this. It's almost like a rune. It almost is like runes because it's the starting foundation of a city. And it's not very much. There's a few things that are even built so that it actually looks like it's more decrepit than it is the startings of a city. And the orcs, or not the orcs, the dwarfs and the elves have kind of made their encampments almost entirely around this foundation, which is nestled beside a mountain. And there is currently a grand fire where Ethanzar and Revnik are currently having a war meeting. And between them stands what is called as an interpreter. And they're these magical enchanters that shape the area so that languages can blend and that they're able to speak to each other fluently, because the elven language, being the horde or the kind of barbarian-ish type that they are, has a very crude language. And the dwarves are maybe a little more sophisticated, so they're not normally able to speak to each other so well. But this interpreter casts a spell which lets them speak. And he looks to Ethanzar and says, "It's been a 10-day. The next sun ends our agreement. There are no signs of the slaves. There are words that your horde elves help the humans escape. That you plan to trap us out here on the sun. What of this, Ethanzar?"
Huh. Just like you, trickster clanmen. No honor. Expect no honor in others. We of the elven tribes, the elven hordes, and me, Khan, were unlike tricksty dwarvish. Huh. You tell us come here to find escaped prisoners, but no escaped prisoners to be found. You simply want escort to New City.
This might look like a city to you, but to the dwarves, this is nothing. This is rubble. Do not accuse me and my kind of treachery. We just found...
Very well. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. He waits very well. Or is that it? Sorry. Did he cut out? Did I cut out?
I think he cut out.
Perfect timing.
It's not on. No. Am I gone?
Oh, no, you're back.
I can still hear you guys.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Shoot. Okay, so he says, if settlement is rubble, no problem. Go back to your cities. Dwarf. Your fanciness. My horde and I stay here. As payment, you promised us slaves as part of agreement. No slaves to be found. We take city.
You
Kind of-
see,
Oh.
down in the ruins of Aramet, a man isolated himself from the rest of the group, Asher. In his palm, he holds a blade, a dagger. Looking back one last time to make sure his sister is still following him, he continues back into the ruins. He looks at her once he's sure they're far enough off. And he says, I'm sorry, as he cuts her throat. He bows his head, sobbing for a minute before he looks up and says, you follow up your end of the bargain now. And the bargainer smiles. We find ourselves back in the council again, where this argument is going, where it's taking place. And Ethanzar, you feel a cold hand grip your heart. And squeeze.
He kind of takes a few steps backwards and holds himself. Your foul magics will not work here. And he raises out a
Oh, no,
He raises a what?
hand out who's the only thing here that's using magic. And this interpreter is a dwarf. And he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't understand much about magic. It's not a thing of his people. But he knows that something magical is happening to him, and the only guy that could do it is this interpreter guy. And he's going to slash out at him and draw blood.
And it is at this moment that the red sun, Kura, peeks over the mountains, flooding the tent with this deep red light. The 11th day has dawned.
Revnik kind of charges in, and as Ethanzar is trying to slay his interpreter, he kind of gets in a grapple with Ethanzar. And as they're stumbling around, the elf actually overpowers him more than he was expecting and pushes him back into the brazier, the fire that lights this place. And as he bumps it, it catches and knocks over, at which point the flame catches the tent that they currently reside in, quickly starting to light it up in flames. He calls out to Ethanzar, "You fool! Interpreters are good money. He's not doing anything to you," as the tent erupts into flames, slowly or quickly around them.
What's happening with the bargainer at this point?
The bargainer is just squeezing slowly, and you hear him whisper, "A life for a life," as he's closing his hands, and you feel blood start to fleck your lips. And the rest of your riders who stand in his room with you would see this as well. Blood starts to fleck your lips, seemingly from nowhere, no wounds.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like this conversation or this debate would have been happening in this tent. Be just the interpreter and the king of the dwarves, or the Shah of the dwarves and the Khan of the elves. Just them two and the interpreter in the tent with like a and on either side where the elvish armies are and the dwarvish armies are. And as this sort of lights on fire, obviously something's going wrong. The elves that are riding horses, because they're a horde, are much quicker than these slow, stubby dwarves who are. And the riders take off towards the tent, just zooming towards it. And a few, they get there and uncover this flaming tent and their chief lying seemingly murdered on the ground. And as they pull the tent to pieces with their and reveal the scene, they kind of look back and command just doesn't even skip a beat and goes, hordes, charge! And at this point, as the rays of sun just emerge over the horizon, the entire elvish army on horseback just starts charging across the no man's land towards the dwarves.
Yep, and I think that answers the question.
I think it answers it really well.
What causes the fracture? It would be the bargainer, correct?
Yeah,
the bargainer.
The bargainer's influence.
Cool.
Dude, that Ash something guy is such a fucking douchebag.
Asher? Oh, Asher.
Asher, that dick. But anyways, it's pretty late, guys. I definitely am getting pretty tired. I'm sure you guys are. So, Harry, are you cool with passing on your turn?
Um,
Do you have something real quick? If you have something real quick, go for it.
Yeah, I was just a quick little event. The death of Sven. I think he'd just be dying like just a natural death, but it would end with a statue being erected in his honor on the hillside that's sort of aligned in such a way that it greets the red sun, which rises on the 11th day of each week, as sort of that memory of the Dolmore ending. Does that sound cool?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So like his hand would be like out like this, and then this,
and
and
it
then
would
the
point
sun would
towards
rise like
Super
it
cool.
looks like from his hand. Yeah. Cool. I'll just add that in.
Yep. And with that, while he's adding that in, that is a game of Microscope, although we basically just started scratching the surface at this world, but we already have a pretty diverse history, I think. How do you guys feel it went before we close out?
I like it.
Very interesting. I think I definitely think that if you did it with more time, and just like, I think with more time, it would definitely come out with like a super crazy, like a detailed backstory for the world.
Yeah,
it's pretty detailed as it is, but I mean, we skipped even 2 lenses, so.
Yeah, and I think we would have got a lot more done if we weren't necessarily teaching it. Like now that we all know it, we would have at least shaved off 45 minutes of like setup. You know what I mean? So we could have got a lot more into it. But I think that's pretty cool. I think I have some inspiration at least for a hopefully a 1-shot or 2. I don't know about you guys, but while he's typing in that last event, thank you guys for showing up, especially Alex, who literally showed up with like 15 minutes notice. We had a player have internet issues and have to drop out, and Alex, being clutch as he was, I don't think the game would have been the same without him. Thanks, Alex. Obviously, Tyler on a roll, DM Ty, check out his YouTube channel, and also 2 Guys T and D&D with Harry and Lionel's channel. Check those guys out. Couple of great DMs and great players. Thanks, guys, and peace out.